jump right into the meeting. So we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business, as always, is to review and make any changes to the agenda. Does anybody have any changes or things to be added to the agenda?
I'm all set.
What's that, Suzanne?
Did we want to add something about Jason's petition, non-petition?
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah. We'll add that under new business.
Okay. Because he approached me about it again, so.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's good memory, Suzanne. As I was writing this Friday, I was like, there's 3 things I had to remember, and that was the one that did not make it into the memory.
And what are you adding, Charlie?
It was an email from Jason at the inn in regards to police contract.
Oh,
Yeah, and whether we would consider putting that back on the agenda or back on the warning for town meeting. Awesome. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to the minutes. First order of business, or the minutes are the meeting of August 17th. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 17th as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 17th.
Great. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. We have a second from Jacob. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
That was a quick one.
Yeah. See if we can beat it tonight. Okay, so if there's no further discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the August 17th minutes as written, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
yes.
Okay, so we have 2 abstentions, 3 yeas. The motion carries. Public Works. Mark, are you aware of any grant updates?
No, I'm not aware of any. No.
Okay. Anything else regarding roads and bridges that's on your radar?
Not really. I'm gonna try and have them put the mower on the tractor, and I may, when I have time, just go mow some of the sides of the road. I don't think they're gonna have time to do it, so I may just, yeah. So if you guys see me out there, that's what I'm doing.
You didn't get enough mowing done this summer already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
No,
say.
I put some hours on. I got Longley Bridge Road done.
There you go. Awesome. So if nothing else under roads and bridges, we can move on to buildings and grounds. So the first item here is just carried over, the 98 Main Street. Same story. This is every week, every couple of weeks, no word from the post office. So we'll just continue to carry that over until we get to the point where the lease agreement's going to expire and they'll be forced to talk to us. The generator repairs. So Brookfield came up last week. They replaced the control panel.
It was Milton Cat, right?
I'm sorry, Milton Cat, not Brookfield.
Yeah.
Apologies.
I saw him go by. So.
Yeah. One thing that they did do while they were there, Ross was there with them, and when they were replacing the control panel, they noted that the heating block had cracked and that it needed to be replaced. And they basically asked Ross, you know, we can do it now and charge you $500, or we can come back and do it and charge you $1,500 because of the additional expenses of travel and all that. And so Ross gave them the green light and then followed up with me afterwards just to make sure. But yeah, so the heating block's replaced. So the generator at the water plant is all fixed and done. I do have a service agreement from Milton Cat to review for the board. So I'll email that out so that people can review it, and then we can act on that at our next meeting.
I was just fingers crossed it keeps working.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So I'll email that service agreement out, and after folks have a chance to review it, we can decide on what direction to go with that. That's it for buildings and grounds, unless anybody has anything else on the radar. If not, we'll move on. The the TAP, the Transportation Alternatives Program. So the kickoff meeting was last week for that. We met the engineers from Dubois King, Nadia from the state came out. And we walked the area, went over any questions that we could see regarding the project, clarifications of distances and locations. So they're going to be starting work on that now. So you'll see people out there, you'll see grade stakes going up. So that work is underway.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't mow them down.
Yeah, try not to. Some of them are in the river, so I hope you don't have the tractor in the river.
No,
So,
I stay right away from that bank.
yeah. So, FEMA. So the next item is FEMA. We're continuing to get our projects in. I thought I had a note from Aaron on this, but I don't know how much we've received to date from FEMA, but I do know that we've got, I think, 5 projects certified now as being complete. And so the balance we're going to continue working on and submit for. So we'll continue to do that and continue to get the grant receipts in. When we do the budget review, we might circle back to FEMA just to talk a little bit about kind of what some things might be pegged to, because there's some numbers in there that might look odd, but we might be getting reimbursements through FEMA. So we can wait till the budget discussion for that. Yeah, so that's it for FEMA. We just continue to keep that work going. Anything else under Public Works from anybody? No? Okay, great. We're gonna pass over visitors for the time being. Scott Perry is gonna join us to talk about the second item under new business. So we'll wait for him to come on under visitors and hit that then. So there's no water commission issues for the board tonight. So we can move right into old business. The first item here is just same item we've carried over, just to make a space for any kind of updates or discussions around any kind of COVID related stuff in town. I think as we were just pointing out, the big next thing is going to be school starting. So that's happening this week. We'll see, how that goes. Hopefully it goes well. Other than that, I don't have any other COVID related news on any other fronts. Does anybody else have any updates or news or things going on, either locally or state level?
Are we gonna be looking at going back to in-person meeting for the select board, or
Yeah,
see what happens with the school openings, and then
yeah. The state has not released any guidance I've seen yet in terms of.
Okay.
They have guidance in terms of how we would do it. We'd have to follow the social distancing requirements and things like that. But they haven't come out with anything formal kind of saying, okay, now we're encouraging folks to move back to in-person meetings and things.
Okay.
My understanding is that most of government bodies, whether it's state or local, are still doing everything remotely. But yeah, as soon as we can move back to in-person format, I'd like to at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jacob.
I've been doing quite a significant amount of research on the building side of that, because that's what I do. And so a lot of that's in the world of HVAC. And if it becomes appropriate, I'm happy to help kind of pass along whatever guidance I've learned around creating sort of healthier, safer indoor air quality environments for offices and indoor spaces.
Awesome.
There's kind of like a whole bit of a flow chart. There's like a host of different points of intervention for different spaces and different levels and types and rates of occupancy and whatnot. I think we are generally.
Oops, I think you might have froze.
And it's all about the amount and the proximity of duration. Oh, that was you?
Nope, you're back. Yep.
Okay, cool. So anyways, yeah, I'm happy to help kind of map out some of that stuff and look at the PSB, mechanical systems and see what we might be able to do to, improve filtration or with some, targeted disinfection for, air purification in certain rooms at certain times, that kind of a thing. So
Awesome.
let me know if that, when and how that would be helpful to chime in on that. I can do that.
That would be great. I mean, I guess, and we can talk offline about this, but I'd be curious just to get your basic take as far as like what level of action would be needed in terms of, we obviously don't have a system in there right now that we'd be like modifying. So
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear kind of like what your take is on, this is something we can bring in and install easily versus we have to renovate versus what the scale of what we're looking at would be.
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I could give a quick, high level take on that now, or we can.
Yeah, sure. Just a high level. So I'm just curious, is there something like a system that we could bring into the building without requiring, substantive renovations, or would it require actually like walls and ceilings coming down and things going up?
Yeah, no, I don't think we would be necessarily looking at that level of intervention. I mean, so on a super high level, there's like basically two approaches around taking care of the air. I mean, this is assuming social distancing, washing hands, masks, proximity, like all that stuff is like that carries through indoors as well as that. So that's all like the basic common sense stuff we have to do around each other regardless. The bigger question around buildings and indoor spaces is the recirculation of air. As the body of science that I have seen coming out of the engineering and sort of building world is that there is a fair amount of transmission of smaller particles, smaller droplets, either within a room because of how air currents happen to be moving within a room, or sort of within a building because of sort of recirculation of air. And it's the basic thing to say is no one really knows, and we're not really going to know for a while, but there's more and more patterns emerging about, a case study where, there's, contact tracing is found spreads across like restaurants and spreads within an auditorium or gymnasium, even when people were distanced because of singing or other gathering congregations. Some stuff in office buildings about, people catching across different spaces and looking at ventilation systems as being part of the culprit for that. So that's kind of like what we know. No one is at all going to be able to guarantee this system will keep you COVID free. Like there's zero expectation around that. It's all about risk reduction. And so the basic strategies are dilution and purification. And dilution is open a window. If you have a room that has an operable window and it's not too cold outside, and that goes a really long way. That's the whole thing. We can hang out outside because it's so heavily diluted. The next step down from that is a lot of heating and ventilation and air conditioning systems are ducted. And you can either set those up to just recirculate and recondition the air, or you can set them up to bring in outdoor air and pass that outdoor air through the system. And so we could take a look and just see what are we set up for currently. And then often it's just a matter of changing the settings. It's a less energy efficient approach, but it's basically putting in a larger mix of fresh outdoor air and less recirculation. And so more, that's a pretty straightforward thing. Another piece to that is there's always filters inside those HVAC systems. So when the incoming air always goes through, like one of those like fabric filters you install. And usually those are a relatively low filter rating. And those can be upgraded in a lot of cases to a filtration level that they won't necessarily stop individual viruses, but they will stop the larger particles that viruses sort of travel along. And so upgrading filters is proven to be one way of kind of controlling the amount of like droplets that are spinning around in the building. Keeping the relative humidity of the building between like 40 and 50% is actually pretty significant in terms of both improving our respiratory system ability to filter out viral particles, as well as the proximity of time that those particles will remain sort of active, if you will. So setting the relative humidity in a given space can be a pretty significant impact. And then air purifiers in a given room. So HEPA filtration, like closed room, that's basically air in that room and passing it through a HEPA filter. And so it's usually a combination of those different approaches depending on the mechanical system, the nature of the building, how many different, I mean, the nice thing about, for example, the public service building is it's not like a massive office complex with all these different people coming from all these different places. Like, we've got a pretty good setup as far as that's concerned to begin with. And if we're talking about in-person meetings, the amount of time we're in that room is pretty low. And so that's pretty helpful as well. So it would be kind of looking at those various approaches, those different variables for different types of work and different types of meeting, and then kind of coming up with an action plan around that. That's the high level.
Yeah, so I guess the next step would be interesting to just sketch out some cost options. Just to look at, like, here's the menu of stuff we're looking at, HEPA filters versus modifications. So we just, and just kind of lay out what we'd be looking at cost-wise, so that we can kind of start to weigh those.
Yeah, do we have any, well, I'm sure we do. How difficult is it to get access to, like, the mechanical plans for the PSB? Those all on file digitally somewhere that we can grab, or is that a little too old?
No idea.
Hard telling, not knowing.
Yeah. I assume they exist somewhere. Whether we have them handy, I don't know.
Yeah. Is that something Michael might have a sense on, at least, like, where the equipment is and who's servicing it and whatnot? Because it's kind of what I'm doing with the office that we're trying to get back into for our company. And I've sort of talked to a few other folks, just starting with this sense of, like, what are our systems and how do they work is, like, the first place to start, just to get a sense of, like, how connected are these rooms to each other and where are the filters and can we take a look at them and all that jazz.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that a Michael question?
Yeah, maybe I can just ask Mike if he knows where those might be.
Yeah. And
then I can also, I can ask, like, Scott might have an idea, Deanna might have an idea. Other folks in town might, So yeah, we can try to track them down.
Cool.
Charlie,
That
are
sounds
they in
good.
the back room at the old office?
Yeah, they very well could be. There's still a lot of
On top of that cabinet?
yeah.
Cool.
They were all there.
Yeah. Some of that stuff got moved when we had the water damage, so it might be a case of digging.
Yeah, and at that point, it might be, if we have a regular service contractor, just, like, having a conversation with them. Usually those folks are coming through pre-winter to kind of do tune-ups and whatnot. So it might be, if we know they're scheduled for that we could do, like, a walkthrough with them, maybe book a little extra time and look at, like, upgrading filters, or, just kind of getting more of a download of info from them about how the system works and seeing, like, what we can do to help dial that in. So, I'm just, usually there's, like, a pre-winter kind of check on that stuff. So you could maybe capitalize on that same visit and just handle it then. The air purifiers that we're looking at for our office are in the, like, kind of in the $1,000 to $2,000 range. And it's pretty much variable based on, like, how big it is, how many square feet, how many cubic feet per minute per hour. And, like, you size that based on the size of the room and the number of people that are going to be in there, the amount of time they're going to be in there. So if we're to, like, just buy some gear and throw it in a room and try to purify the room, like, that's kind of roughly what we're talking about. And then, a humidifier, like, and a little, like, humidistat. We know what those run. It's, a couple few $100s for a decent one. Yep. And then it's just the trick of not over humidifying, so you're not causing your windows to sweat and stuff like that. So there's just a little bit of, like, I don't think we would need anything, like, super high tech and dialed in and automated. I think we're smart enough to, like, look at a meter and see if the window's sweating, and, like, we can keep it pretty basic. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so we'll try to track down that information to give us a better kind of current condition.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yep.
Anything else under COVID that anybody's got?
Just a quick thing from the clerk's office. Our hours are still the same, but we've transitioned Fridays, which are 9 to 1, to be remote servicing only. So like, no research appointments, because we've had such an influx of, like, we're encouraging researchers in particular to do things remotely. We'll send them an index via email, but it means that we have a lot more of a workload as far as emails, basically. So it's kind of quiet. Liz did update on the front door, and I think she sent out a notice, but Fridays are not open to people coming into the office for, notaries, marriage licenses, things like that. So, or they're by appointment only for those. So, yeah.
Great, thanks. Awesome. So if there's nothing else there, we can move on to item B here, the electric vehicle charging stations. Is there an update on that, Suzanne?
Yeah, I met with Doug and Michael at the building, and so basically they sort of evaluated a spot, and they're going to put in right kind of behind the ramp on the edge of that corner of the wall there. They'll have to pour some sort of concrete base, and then Doug is gonna finagle the electrical through the walls there, and we'll set it up right there. And Michael's gonna bring in some jersey barriers, which he was gonna do anyways to protect the ramp. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Is the pouring of the concrete something that Mike's gonna set up, or do we need to organize that, or?
I think so. Doug is gonna probably do it. It's not a lot, so they can likely just do it. You know, maybe Jesse or somebody would help him do it.
Okay.
They can just dig it out, put in forms, and mix the concrete and pour it.
Okay, so we're not talking about bringing in like SD Ireland for something. It's more okay.
No.
All right. Good. Awesome.
Yeah. So
Cool.
Doug said he's hoping to get it all done before the ground freezes, obviously.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thanks for keeping on that.
Yeah, sorry it's been so slow.
No, it's okay. Everything these days is time is just weird right now. So yeah. Good. But good to see it moving forward. All right, so next item under old business. This is the wastewater and the streetscape project updates. So I did send out an email last Friday to the board with the news that came in from the USDA Rural Development about the grant loan package offer. So, just to recap, we did get about $507,000 from Northern Borders. We've got some additional subsidy money coming in from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The USDA funds were are designed to be kind of like the foundational funding for the project. And so what they came in with was a grant offer of $6,065,000 and a loan offer of $4.9 million, basically, with an interest rate of 1.125. So the interest rate is fantastic. It is pegged at a point where we'll get that rate if the rate does go down between now and when things would potentially close. If there was a lower rate at that point, we would get the lower rate, but we are locked in to having a maximum of 1.125. The trick, or the not exciting part of this news, was the qualification around other funding coming into the project at this point. Our plan for this has always been to get the USDA funding offer and then basically go out and chase other dollars to continue to ratchet down the final loan amount to get it to a place that's affordable, because, at the end of the day, if it's not affordable, we can't do the project. Unfortunately, USDA basically informed us that this is the offer that's been made, and if any other funding comes in, it would go against the grant offer, not the loan offer. So if we were to pull in another $1 million, that would take the grant offer from $6 million to $5 million, but it would not affect the loan offer. To say that was a bummer to learn that is like a really big understatement. I did have a call at the end of last week with the head of rural development in New Hampshire and Vermont, and then the lead in Vermont, to essentially try to figure out how that disconnect got made. Basically the call resulted in no change on that from them. That's still a fixed policy. The offer itself is a good one. And if you look at the history of the USDA's funding for these projects, and the interest rates as low as they've ever given out. So, it's a positive offer, but it still leaves us with the $4.9 million loan. And that's where we need to figure out how we can get that to a point where the user fees and any potential town-wide assessment through a sewer benefit assessment would be affordable, because quite frankly, if we were just to go to bond for 4.9 million, we couldn't do it. Wouldn't work.
Mhm.
So I spent a couple days on the phone with folks from Hoyle Tanner and some other folks at the state trying to figure out where do we go from here. Essentially right now, all the money that we've gotten in here to pay for everything, the engineering, preliminary engineering, all of that has been covered through grants or loans that are not made payable back if the project doesn't advance. So right now we don't have any risk, essentially. If the project was not to advance, it'd be, you know, very, very disappointing, but we would not be out money. What I did work on with the state was to amend the engineering planning advance. So working with Hoyle Tanner and folks from DEC, we're looking at amending the engineering planning advance, which is the money that the state essentially is giving you as a loan that's only repayable if you do the project. We're amending that to get some more money from them to keep work moving forward on the engineering side, but in a way where, again, if we do end up having to pull the plug on it, it's not going to be out of pocket for us. Essentially, we're trying to buy some time until we can figure out what the financing of this would look like. So we've got cost tables we're working on. I had one, I was going to share one with folks tonight, but I figured it'd be easier actually to send it in an email form with some kind of instructions so that we're not trying to do it together on the thing and it would be hard to do. But that's basically the next step, is to figure out what the framework would look like here in a way that would be affordable to users and taxpayers. And then lastly, we are looking to revisit the idea that we had, not the idea, but the state, if you recall, had been looking to pass a rural TIF bill, a tax increment financing district bill that will allow small communities like ours to use that tool. So if you think about like what Winooski did, all of that was paid for by a TIF district, which essentially is borrowing against future growth in your tax base. So if there was a way that we could essentially borrow against future growth from the project, that could bring in revenue to help support it that would not come from taxpayers. So that's where we're at now, is trying to figure out what other sources like that we can go to, how to make it work, and how to get that final number down to something that we can actually pay for. So that's the summary, but I want to open it up to the board for reactions, reflections. You know, Jacob, I saw your hand go up.
Well, first of all, damn. And also thank you for trying to keep pushing and be as creative with this as possible. That's definitely a really frustrating situation. I did have just a question about the TIF funding. I'm actually involved with a project that's being partially funded by TIF, and I still haven't fully wrapped my head around exactly how that works. So is there a point at which future revenues above the sort of like baseline average at the time that the funding is secured, a higher percentage of that or a certain amount of that, a percentage of revenue above that baseline goes directly towards the financing? Is that how is the future revenue increase is established?
Yeah.
Like how does that actually work?
So essentially, well, so some of this I don't know because the bill hasn't passed yet that I know of. I mean, I've been trying to track it. So some of that would be in the legislation. I'm also not an expert in these, and they're pretty confusing.
Yeah.
But they have shown that they can work. Essentially, like what we would be thinking about doing here would be to say, and I guess I'm comfortable saying this because I have talked to Walt about it, but like if we were to say, for example, the Coda property that was recently purchased, if we were to make that a tax increment finance district, we would then basically be saying any future development on there that would essentially increase the grand list and increase tax revenue, we would find some way of establishing that, you know, that future growth, and then we would essentially get that money now, and then it would be paid back through the future. Yeah. I'll try to get like Cliff Notes version of this.
Sure.
Get it out to the board so that you can read it over and kind of try to understand it a little bit better. But
Yeah.
so it's kind of those are the kind of tools that we're looking at now.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I wasn't aware that would even be a possibility for a town of our scale, but it seems like exactly the sort of project that TIF was established for. So I could see as a way of trying to, you know, take a non-user base but sort of town supported approach to it. Yeah, it seems like that would be pretty interesting if we could access that.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically any place we can get money that does not come from the users and the taxpayers
Right.
out of their pocket. You know, that's what we're gonna find.
That's the goal. Interesting. Yeesh.
Yeah. So that's where that's at. We're gonna keep trying to figure out again the financing framework, because that's basically the front burner project for everybody right now. And yeah, I mean, like I'm not counting us out by any means. This is frustrating, and it's a hurdle. So we'll keep looking. You know, if we can't do it, who can do it, right? You know, I did also say to the folks on the call, you know, made it pretty clear that with what had happened and how we're looking at the project now, if we have to go back and give back $500,000 to NBRC and give back $6 million to USDA, we're all going to look really stupid. And so if they can help us avoid that, it would be in their interest as well.
In their best interest, right?
So, so hopefully, I mean, and they are, you know, they're pulling for us, you know. So that's that. Any other questions or comments on that?
It's disappointing.
Yeah, and frustrating, certainly.
Does anyone have a rich uncle?
Honestly, Jacob, like a GoFundMe has come up in conversations.
For real.
I mean, if somebody can raise, what was the story about the kid that like wanted to raise money to develop it was a joke. It was like a recipe for something. It was a cool story, and the kid raised like $2 million. We have a great story to tell. I mean, so yeah, nothing is off the table at this point.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, so we'll keep working on that. We'll keep trying to get that financing to work, but that's the key now, to get the financing in place to make it work. So, yeah.
No, never mind. We can move on.
Okay. Well, I'll keep, oh yeah.
What about the streetscape?
So that, they haven't come back with their offer on that front yet. But at this point, any additional debt to the community on top of something we're looking at now, like, would not be sustainable.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at there would be potentially trying to pivot, and instead of using USDA financing for that, is to go after federal grant dollars, which are harder to get and there's more work involved, but it would mean that we wouldn't be looking at a final loan bond from USDA on that front. It would come through government grant dollars, and it would get a much higher percentage of the project funded. So the team at Hoyle Tanner is still kind of working on that as part of this next steps. So there's, you know, pivoting there, but I think, I don't know, at least the past couple of weeks, the streetscape stuff, at least for me, has been kind of backburnered until we can figure this wastewater stuff out. So like I said, we're not giving up. We're just seeing what we can do and how we can make it work.
Yes.
So I did, so is there anything else on that before we move on? So it is now past 7. Scott hasn't hopped on yet. So if you want, Sue, did you have anything for visitors specifically?
Nope.
Okay. So if we want, we can just keep moving through the agenda. We'll get to the thing Scott was going to hop on for anyway. So the next item here is the Communications Union District update. Did everybody see Everett's email on that? So looks like things are going pretty well. Montgomery, Enosburg, Bakersfield, Fairfield, Fairfax, Georgia, Sheldon, Highgate, and Alburg have all joined. They've got a lot of their organizational stuff done. One question he did have in his email was other public Wi-Fi spots, hotspots that we could consider, because there is funding for that. So we did put one in up at the PSB that's working really well. The other spot that we had talked about was the Grange Hall. So I might circle back to Everett and just ask him if we want to look at the Grange Hall, if there's an opportunity there to get one in, because that would give service to Main Street and the lot next door, which would be helpful. Great.
Is it worth looking at all at Pratt Hall, getting something up in the village?
Oh, that's another good idea. Yeah, let me ask him about that too.
I don't know if there's another village location that would be better, but that seems to be the most like central public thing I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get the Historical Society to buy into it,
Right.
but I don't think that would be a hurdle. You know, the one thing with the CUD stuff going on that is Everett didn't have in his email that is a little interesting. I don't know if folks have seen any of the news. Diggers had a couple articles about it, just about the state's reverse auctions they're lining up. So the state, in trying to do their best, is potentially creating something where they're going to have a short-term solution, which is going to make a long-term fix impossible. They're trying to get CARES money out the door now to do expansion, call it line expansion, but expanding service in certain areas using CARES funding. But that would be working with existing providers like Consolidated Communications. The issue is that if that happened, Consolidated would then be expanding their territory and their user base, and they'd probably be going after, you know, call it low-hanging fruit or whatever, which would then reduce the potential scale that the CUD would work under and make the economics of that potentially not work. So there is some uncertainty around how that might play out. So we'll have to just see what happens.
Do you know what the time frame is of that decision making? I mean, obviously we're getting close to the end here of the year. Do you know like when the legislature gets back into session? Is that when more action moves on that? Like what's the?
So I think my understanding is that that's not in the hands of the legislature anymore. I think that's
okay.
More like it's not something they need to decide on. That being said, I think if enough pressure got put on legislators to try to do something, then maybe the administration would pivot on that. But
yeah,
can't say for sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I most of my information on this is coming from like Digger and talking with folks who are involved in it. So
totally.
Yeah. Okay. If there's nothing else on that, we can just move to new business. The budget status update. So I emailed out on Saturday morning, Friday, the budget status from Aaron. So hopefully folks had a chance to peruse that. Typically what we do here is we go down the percentage columns, and anything that has a really high percentage, we flag it and kind of ask, why is this the way it is now? She did have some information in her cover email just about some of these big things. So for example, contracted services under the town office expenses, which is at 268% of the budget. That is from NEMRIC. That's a $5,000 a year service contract, which I don't think we had understood we needed or planned or budgeted for, but apparently we need it. We just can't do without it.
Which one was that, Charlie?
So if you look on town office payroll 171045 contracted services.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah. So that has to do with NEMRIC on that one.
Okay.
She also pointed out the Hoyle Tanner bills for reimbursement. So if you go to general government expenses miscellaneous, you'll see that that is close to 3,000% over budget. That's just waiting for the rest of the reimbursements to come in from the state and from USDA through those things we just discussed. So that will basically be a wash. It just shows up now because we haven't gotten that in. Another thing she pointed out was that the St. Ange bills that we weren't counting on are in here. If you go to page, what would be under the highway road maintenance, I'm sorry, road maintenance contracted services, the 61,000, that's the invoice from St. Ange we got. If you recall, there was a grant that we got in that we weren't expecting, which will be able to offset that. So kind of like a, oh no, and then like a good thing happened. What I'm not sure of is where that's reflected in here. So I need to ask Aaron, because I don't see under grants on revenue, there's nothing showing up there. So I do want to ask Aaron just about where that is showing up in the budget, just to make sure we can identify where the balance is.
It's Charlie. I know. I can't remember what we on miscellaneous on the income. The 67,500. Is that where those grants were supposed to be coming in?
Oh, you know what? Maybe that is.
2,000. I think that's where we put that. When we budgeted. I'm not sure.
Maybe, although, because when we budgeted, though, we didn't know this other grant was coming in.
But where did we get that 67? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and I'll ask Aaron to clarify that.
Charlie, is that the bequest for the Conservation Commission?
I don't think that would show up here because that would be something.
But it goes, I think it went into the general fund, right? And
Wouldn't
then
it end up?
To us.
It would go to you. Go to the Conservation Funds Reserve Fund. So.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'll follow up with Erin on that and ask her about the grants and then how it connects with the miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Some other things that were just, typically, one of the things we always kind of look at is road materials, and where we're at there. So if you go to the highway materials page, where we're looking at salt, gravel, sand, etc. One thing we're seeing here is that we are over budget on gravel, and then the miscellaneous. Down lower, we're also over budget on the loader. So one of my questions is how this tracks with FEMA, because some of this stuff is going to be pegged to the FEMA reimbursements. So I think this might also be another spot where we're seeing a very high percentage, but what we're not seeing is essentially the other side of the scale that's going to negate that. So I will clarify with Aaron, how those parallel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have any notes?
I told them take it easy on the gravel too. They can grade the road without a truck in front of them. So.
Hey, what?
They can grade the roads without having a truck in front of them.
Yeah.
I already went over that.
So did anybody else have any other questions or notes on the budget status?
Yeah.
I made
Oh, go ahead, Jacob. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to drag us down, too much of a thing. I just highlighted a bunch of stuff that kind of jumped out. I didn't know if it's appropriate to just kind of bang through and.
Yeah, totally. Because what I'll do is I'll circle back to Aaron with any questions, and then I'll send out a follow-up email with clarifications. So yeah, if you've got questions, cool. Let's flag them.
Yeah, hopefully we can just knock them out real quick. I just flagged the stuff that seemed wasn't obvious. So on the revenue side, the delinquent taxes and the tax penalty and interest seem pretty high. Is that just a timing thing, or are we actually expecting to have a higher return on those than normal, given that we're? Oh, actually, this is all year to date by dated 9/4, or is this end of Q2.
Yes, this is year to date. This is year to date.
Year to date.
Whatever she
Cool.
calls it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
9/4/20. Okay, cool. So are we expecting those to like sort of drop off a bit, or do you think we'll have some additional revenue just by turning the clock on the delinquent taxes and whatnot?
Well, the hope would that we would continue to get more revenue in, as those get paid. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if there was like a seasonality to that or not. And then, just notable that the vital records and marriages are down so low. Looks like that. I mean, they're small line items, but it's just like, oh, there's your budget impact of COVID. Also that, same question around the miscellaneous, just, what that budget was for, and is there a time frame sort of trigger to that we should be seeing that as a
Yep.
production. Then generally the office seemed low. Oh, so the contractor. Oh, we talked about the contracted services and the office expenses.
Yep.
And that wicked high miscellaneous in general government. That was for Hoyle Tanner. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about
And
that.
again,
So,
that's
okay.
the grant funding is going to cover that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm assuming the bond payment just hits a little bit later in the year, or was there like a deferment as to why we're only 10% of that? Sorry, that's 174040.10.
Yeah, those are all the debt service. I don't know exactly, but all those are just a factor of when we pay them.
Okay, that's all. I figured that was just a timing thing.
Yeah, so it's just a timing thing.
Yep. And then under highway payroll, I'm wondering, is this just an accounting piece that we're at like only 20% of our labor, but then there's all the subcategory pieces are way high? I mean, it looks like our total payroll is only at 35% all day, and I know that tends to be larger in the winter than in the summer, so I'm kind of assuming it kind of washes out, but I just didn't know how that breaks down.
The labor piece also, Aaron had a note that right now Michael's salary is currently under buildings and grounds. That needs to be split out. So the labor here as reflected isn't an accurate reflection because Michael's salary is not included in that number.
Cool, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then the contracted services, that makes sense. You just talked about that. And then materials we just talked about. I flagged that too. I wonder how much of that is actually cost. I mean, my God, I have seen costs just skyrocketing like in every division across the board in the last 3 months. So that might just be worth noting in general that we should expect sand is probably going to run over budget because of just material costs alone. And really anything that we're purchasing that's civil related is like, I mean, we're looking at like 2, 3, 5 times increases over the last like 2 months. So that might just, from a cash flow standpoint or just a general budgeting standpoint for winter roads, I'm expecting we'll be hit there just by material costs. If there's any way to lock in prices and contracts or like pre-purchase or any of that, that would absolutely behoove us. Like I'm seeing costs change like every time I talk to my subs. They're like, oh yeah, I know I just told you this last week. I'm like, oh my God. So I'll just stop calling you. So that was just note from the field.
I believe the sand is about the same price, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think Michael's.
Oh, cool.
But I'll pull the receipts with Aaron and we can get the prices and I'll get back. I'll clarify that to see what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And then we can also reach out to suppliers if we want to and talk about, what the forecast looks like.
Yeah, I hope I'm just being alarmist to no avail would be the best case scenario. The projects and events also just seem like a pretty low percentage. I don't know if we're like expecting another hit or if that's just like, well, we save some stuff on COVID because things don't happen. That 150 for contracted services, just that we had budgeted, and then
That's budgeted for the paving, the contracted.
Oh, that was for paving. Okay.
So that
got it. So that'll hit.
Yeah.
So we have the bill. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
That'll be gone.
That'll be gone.
Yes.
Don't get too excited about that.
That'll be gone and then some.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the buildings and grounds payroll being high is because of the division of Michael's
It's Mike.
salary.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, sweet. Yeah, public works seems super low, and I'm just 98 million. I'm assuming buildings are not being used very much, so our expenses are reduced, and that's kind of nice. Is that kind of the short story on that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, yeah. I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have any notes they want to pass on? Like I said, I'll get back with Aaron and clarify these things, and then circle back with an email.
I have a question. It might just be not, understanding how this is laid out exactly, but with the buildings and grounds, the budget is all, it's 24, just under 25,000, then it's all zero. But then there are all these expenses already accounted for. How does that, how am I supposed to read that part of this?
Yeah, let me just make sure I'm looking at the same spot. So are you on page 5?
Item 1771, 10 through 14.
10 through 14, okay.
Mhm.
So buildings around payroll through 14. 14.
So like snow removal is 0, vacation 0. It all just rolls into payroll. Is that what?
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, the bottom
Yeah, so
line,
that's,
yeah.
yeah. So the number at the top is all that rolls right up to the top number,
Okay.
which hasn't been broken back out yet, because
Okay.
that's all a reflection of Michael. Yeah.
All right. Because it's all broken down in the actual column.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I got you.
And we do have costs, the spreadsheets, where we do have that broken out, so we do know kind of what we're paying for those, but here it's not. So,
Sure.
yep.
And just in general, it's awesome having the midway review. I appreciate, Mark, thanks for calling for that. And I really appreciate this practice. It's great.
Yeah. Totally. All right, cool. So I'll circle back to Aaron with questions on that, and I'll get back with an email follow-up. So the next item here, I don't know how many folks have seen this, but there's a document, a painting, a piece of art. It's called an illumination. It used to be in the Old Town Clerk's office. It was done by Carl and Tierney, I think is how you pronounce it.
Cherney.
Go ahead, Sue. Sorry, one more time.
Carl Cherney.
Tierney. And it was a gift to the town back in, I believe, 1996. It's essentially it looks like a painting, but it's all text. And so what Carl was he was I guess they called him an illuminator, but they would take texts, historical texts or something, and use a combination of calligraphy and art to essentially embellish the document. And so the one that we have is a translation having to do with, remember, Sue, it's something having to do with Rome. It's like the,
Yeah, I have it at home, Charlie. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, it's some part of the history of Rome. But it was a gift to the town from Carl. And what the question before the board right now is whether or not we want to transfer it to the Historical Society, and essentially designate, ownership and housing of that document to them, since we don't really have a place for it right now. Whereas if they would have a place where they could hold it and just display it.
Well, Charlie,
Yeah.
I'm surprised Scott's not on, because he was going to come on specifically for this. We
Yeah.
thought about taking that piece, if you truly do give it to us, which is what the intention. I mean, there was a big thing on it that said for the Montgomery Historical. But anyway,
Yeah.
we thought we would display it at the library, and we had.
Oh, that's right. That is what Scott.
Marie's
Yes.
on the board with us, because at least the library is temperature controlled. The
Yep.
Hall is not, and that piece of art cannot be somewhere where there's such great fluctuations.
In temperatures, yeah. So
Mm.
we would essentially just be passing it to the
Right.
Historical Society to act as stewards of the document.
Exactly, but yeah, exactly.
I think it's valued at like, I want to say Scott said it was valued.
At 15,000 when he gave it to us.
Yeah.
And we would like to have it appraised, but we're not gonna spend the money to do that if, we're not gonna,
Yeah.
We were gonna go to either Sotheby's or Christie's, because they're the only ones that would handle a piece of art like this.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the story behind this. And I can I can forward you guys an email that has more information about the document itself.
Yeah.
You can see a picture of it and read the history of it.
And you might even remember it once you see it. It hung right in the town clerk's office on the wall.
Yeah. So anybody have any thoughts or questions on this?
I think it's a good idea to probably put it into the library. I think the illumination part of it too is, I do believe some of what it is also, it's like gold leaf that he.
Yes, it is. It's part
Yeah.
art and calligraphy. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's
So,
a lot of gold leaf on it.
so we should keep it in as safe of a place as possible, considering, like Sue said, temperature control. I think that would be the best idea.
Okay. So I guess the motion here would be to gift Carl Tierney's illumination to the Montgomery Historical Society to put it in their stewardship, in their ownership.
Right, but we'll hang it in a town.
And yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I will make that motion. I will move that we transfer and gift the Carl Tierney's illumination to the Montgomery Historical Society.
I'll second that.
Great, we have a second from Leanne. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. I will let Scott know. So the added item here that we added was Jason's email. So did everybody have a chance to read his email about speed? So essentially, I don't remember exactly what I wrote back to him, but he has been trying to get signatures to put this item back on the warning for town meeting, but has not successfully gotten enough of them. It's not his first time reaching out to us about the issue, and essentially what I told him was that the board does have the ability to unilaterally put things on the warning without a petition. The petition helps because it demonstrates community support for something. It also will force the board if the board doesn't want to. So we don't necessarily have to vote on this tonight because we're not voting on the warning for town meeting, but did want to make a space for anybody to talk about reactions to the email or thoughts around this item.
From what I've seen, I think that the traffic has been a lot slower. And, just from, every once in a while I've seen speeders or heard it, but it's so quiet downtown at night now. I'm not sure exactly when he's talking about.
I think Jason's basically saying in general, like all the time, he's.
I don't think it's all the time, honestly. I don't.
So again, when we oh, go ahead, Jacob. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel quite torn because on the one hand, I'm hearing, public safety, complaints that, from someone on the ground that I don't have any way of, refuting. And I don't want to be callous and sort of disregard those. On the other hand, we did take this to the town and the town, weighed in on this. And so it's non-trivial to bring it back to the town again. Is there have we heard from more than just Jason on this? Is there any other like input, feedback? Like, because I absolutely do not want to be like, one person is just complaining. And also I want to make, like, I'm trying to get some sort of sense of like, yeah, is this just a really unresolved issue that we do need to bring back up again? Is time, like what,
Well, it
it's
plays
clearly
into,
not a settled issue.
yeah, and it plays into the broader discussion, not just about speeding, but about ATVs, about, and so, we have heard
Right.
from more than Jason that there's issues. I know, hear from Darren on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And
And some folks in the village as well. So
folks
that,
in the village as well, so, yeah.
I hear that.
Yeah, Sue, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you, you said that Jason said that he couldn't get the number of signatures needed. I mean, with a petition in town, don't you only need like 25 or 35
I think
signatures?
it's 50.
50.
Okay,
50.
so even if it's 50. So
No,
how big of a deal is this if he couldn't even get 50 people to sign it?
no,
That's
your
fine. I don't know.
points well taken.
I don't live on Main Street, so
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's an element here where there's, there's to some degree a real issue with a certain part of town that only a certain segment of the town sees and experiences.
Right.
So it does make it difficult to kind of, project that out to the whole town and have the same level of empathy or understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, so his request is that we put it on the town meeting ballot for a vote to have get a sheriff contract. Do I recall that correctly? I don't have the email in front of me.
Yeah, his request, and I did clarify it with him. He asked us to do the right thing, which was the request from him was to put it on the warning for town meeting. That was his request.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as I said, we don't need to vote on this tonight or anything. We can circle back to him with a recommendation to try harder for signatures. We can, just put a note on it and wait until we get to the time of year where we're going to be doing the warning for town meeting. Again, it's not,
Just from I don't live on Main Street either, but I work at the Lantern, and just from observing in the evenings, working on the porch, notably the ATV traffic it's loud and it sounds really fast, even if they are abiding by the speed limit. So I would personally get the sense that a lot of complaints about speeding or traffic violation is coming from that concern, judging from Jason and Darren and other people I've spoken to and just watching Main Street when I'm at work. But I don't know that a sheriff's contract or a police contract would address those issues, or that you could convince the town to go with them just based solely on those issues. But that would be my observation, is and I do know also with, the big manure hauling trucks and stuff, it's sort of the same thing. They're so loud and obtrusive going down the street that even if they are doing 30 or 35, it really does seem that much faster. Not to discredit, Jason seeing speeding vehicles or trucks. I'm sure that they do, but that is maybe a factor as well. But
and was it confirmed that sheriffs do have jurisdiction to pull over ATVs, or is it only fish and game? I'm still slightly confused about that.
Yeah, the sheriffs do have the ability to do enforcement. They would do it using an ATV. So when Andre's up here, he'll be out on not just Andre, but they have an ATV they use for that kind of enforcement.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can't contract them just for that use.
Yeah,
right.
Same discussion we had last year.
Same discussion.
Same
exactly.
issue.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
So So, I mean, I'm happy to circle back to Jason and give him a little nudge to maybe get some more signatures. And I really do think that it does give the item more weight in terms of its being there, because it does demonstrate, you know, the community support for it. I am cognizant of the argument that, you know, a valid concern of the minority should not be discounted because of a apathy of the majority kind of thing. But, but you know, anyway.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I do want to take this seriously. I do want to, you know, ensure that, you know, a legitimate public, you know, safety risk brought by a minority of sort of quote unquote frontline residents to this issue is being taken seriously. And it does seem like it'll be a lot easier I would appreciate having that what seems like a pretty low bar of signatures and like public buy-in that it's really brought by the citizens. Like, I don't feel super pumped as a select board member to, without like at least a 50 signature document, which seems like it should be pretty achievable, to bring something back that was already on the warrant, that has already been voted down, we've already discussed. Like, I feel totally comfortable bringing it up again and discussing it again. I feel less comfortable doing that purely as an action of the select board without a citizen's kind of mandate behind it. And I would really expect that if it's that just the people living within the village and the center, he should be able to do that. And that would make it a lot easier for us to support. It would be different if this hadn't already come up and we didn't already go through this last year. And I'm sensitive to the fact that as a select board, bringing an issue back up again from, you know, just like an insistent request as opposed to an actual, like, there's a process for this for a reason. It'd be good to be able to follow that process. That's my opinion.
I think we just need to give the speed signs a little more of a chance too. I mean, they've only been in like a month. I think it slows me down. I mean, I think
slows me down.
I don't think you can just judge that with just a few weeks of them being up. I mean, that too.
Okay. So it sounds like the consensus that I'm kind of hearing is to circle back to Jason and really encourage him to work a little bit more in getting signatures from folks, so that can give the foundation of the question. So I will circle back. I'll reach out to him and give him a nudge and see if there's anything we can do to assist him in that, but that would be the preferred process. So great.
Thank you.
All right, last item on the agenda for this evening is liquor tobacco licenses. We have one in from the inn, first and third class and outdoor consumption, just a renewal of their existing license.
I'll make a motion to renew the liquor license for the inn.
Great. So we have a motion from Mark to approve the renewed license for the inn.
I'll second.
Yep, we have a second from Suzanne. Great. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, motion carries. And with that, if there's no other business to be conducted, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Suzanne's made the motion and Jacob has seconded it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we can vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thanks everybody. Have a great evening.
Hi, thanks.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.